But let me bring to the microphone Dr. Robert Marks. He is a distinguished professor of electrical and computer engineering at Baylor University. By the way, co-author of a new book, Introduction to Evolutionary Informatics, and this is published by World Scientific. Individual, by the way, that has really been kind of following this whole issue of intelligent design. But the other day, there was a question being raised about whether or not these computers that are being developed now that are actually they're really so much more sophisticated, so much faster, that some scientists are saying, well, we're getting to the day where these supercomputers have kind of human-like capabilities, like awareness and emotions. And whether it's Elon Musk or Bill Gates or a variety of others, they've been really concerned about this. Stephen Hawking has even talked about the concern about artificial intelligence. So I thought I would bring an expert in the field to this discussion. If for no other reason, if you've watched too many Terminator movies or Matrix movies, you might be concerned about this. So Dr. Robert Marks, thank you for joining us here on Point of View.
Oh, thank you, Kerby. Thank you for inviting me.
Again, I wanted to get into this. First of all, give us a sense of how sophisticated these computers are becoming, because with this advent of artificial intelligence, we no longer have to control them. They, in many cases, can control themselves. We can put a rover on Mars, and it can be able to make some good, quote, decisions like a human being would make in order to find the best path to do an investigation or to, in some cases, even be able to fix itself.
Well, indeed, I think that electrical engineering and control engineers and artificial intelligence can do things which are adaptive. They're able to adapt to their environment, but I would argue that that's probably a good example of design, not of anything which is creative.
Yes, and again, a lot of this relates very much to this idea of intelligent design. But let's go to how you would even be able to determine that. Many of us may have seen the movie about Dr. Turing, and there's been this Turing test. But talk about that. Is it possible to really even test a computer to determine whether or not it's achieved capabilities as human being? In other words, if I had one human being at a terminal and then a computer at the other, would there be a way eventually that I could determine whether or not I'm communicating with a human being or communicating with a computer?
Well, this was Alan Turing's dream. In fact, the name of the movie that you're talking about that starred, and I don't know if I can say his name, Benedict Cumberbatch, I believe it was.
That's
Same
right.
guy that played Dr. Strange and Sherlock Holmes, was about Alan Turing, but the name of the movie was called The Imitation Game. And it was Turing's goal to actually show that a computer could replicate a human being, could, if you will, imitate a human being. And he proposed the idea of the Turing test way back in the 1930s. And his basic idea was that if you were to sit on one side of a curtain and a computer was to sit on the other side, and you were to go back and forth, could you tell whether the person on the other side or the computer on the other side was a computer or was it a or was it a person? And there have been a number of attempts to pass the Turing test. The most recent that I'm familiar with is with a program called Eugene Goostman, who fooled about 33% of his interrogators into thinking it was human. However, Turing's original idea is now being recognized as a test for so-called soft AI. Soft AI is kind of what computers can do. Hard AI is the ability of the computer to actually replicate the features that we see in human beings, like creativity and understanding and consciousness and self-aware. And a great researcher at Rensselaer Polytechnic, Bringsjord, said it very nicely. I'm reading now the quote: "Though progress towards Turing's dream is being made, it's coming only on the strength of clever but shallow trickery." In other words, the people that write these programs to pass the Turing test are gaming the system in order to make it work. So Bringsjord proposed something called the Lovelace test after Ada Lovelace. She was the first computer programmer back in the 19th century who also said that computers cannot be creative or anything. But here, the basic idea is very simple. Does the computer do something? Does the computer create to such an extent that it cannot be explained by the person that wrote the code? And if a computer program passes that test, the Lovelace test, then it is truly hard artificial intelligence. And we are nowhere near that.
Yes, and that was kind of the premise of The Matrix, where it's writing its own code, or some of the others. What about this idea of artificial intelligence? I mentioned that just a minute ago. Stephen Hawking is very concerned that artificial intelligence could spell the doom or the end of the human race. I think of the movie I, Robot, and you have Will Smith in there. There's a sense that some people are concerned that once we get artificial intelligence, once we get robots, they're going to take over our planet and eventually extinguish all of us human beings. What are your thoughts?
Well, I believe that artificial intelligence and computers are going to have an incredible impact on our society. My goodness, they have already, and they will continue to do so. But it is simply an introduction of a new technology. And the technology itself is not good or bad. It's how we manage it. It's, again, like any technology. So that's going to be the key, is how do we manage this? Will a computer ever become self-conscious or self-aware? No, I think that there is very strong evidence against this. And I'm not the only one. For example, Roger Penrose, who wrote about the Penrose-Hawking black hole singularity, really, really smart guy, wrote a book called The Emperor's New Mind, which is a difficult read, but it turned me on to this viewpoint that computers cannot be creative like human beings. And I also read a recent little article by the director of the Whitting School's Robot and Protein Kinematics Lab at Johns Hopkins University, who says robots will never be able to exhibit any form of creativity or sentience. So I believe that anybody that actually looks at this with a technical background recognizes the limitations of the computers. And yes, computers are getting faster, they have more memory, but the computers that we have now are no better in a sense than the computers we had back in the 60s. In fact, with Turing's original machine back in the 30s. They're faster, they can do things 1,000,000 times as fast, but if you go back to Turing's original machine, you can do exactly the same thing as we do on today's computers. It's going to take you a heck of a longer. And the reason that's important is we can go back and look at the limitations of Turing's machine and find out the limitations of today's computers.
Very good. Let's take a break, and we will continue our conversation with Dr. Robert Marks. By the way, if you'd like to join us, 1-800-351-1212. We're going to have a bit of an open line in the second hour, but in case you have some questions about this. Also, we can learn some things from his new book that he has co-authored with Bill Dembski and others, Introduction to Evolutionary Informatics. We'll talk about what that means right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. $3.25 million. That's the price one New Jersey town will pay for its religious discrimination. Not long ago on this program, I told you about the refusal of Bernards Township, New Jersey, to grant a building permit to the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, New Jersey. The society fought City Hall for at least 4 years, having their application denied 9 separate times. In November 2016, the U.S. Department of Justice filed a suit against the township, alleging a violation of the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. The Department of Justice won just 2 months later. But by May 2017, the township decided to give up the fight, settle with the government, and allow the Islamic Society to build their mosque. This is good news for religious liberty. Though Bernards Township, in this case, used their zoning laws to prevent the building of a mosque, it could have just as easily been a synagogue, a church, a cathedral, or other house of worship. City governments cannot intentionally throw up permitting obstacles to religious organizations. They must treat a religious organization's application for land use just like it would any other land use application. In a land that values freedom, our government should never make the free exercise of religion difficult. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
More people today are saying Americans don't really need religion, but America does need religion. Religion helps the economy, families, and even national security. Learn more by reading Saving America, 10 Reasons Religious Freedom is the Key to Our Nation's Future. You can download this free booklet at firstliberty.org/Saving America. That's firstliberty.org/Saving America. Discover 10 ways religion benefits America at firstliberty.org/Saving www.ecosystem.org/saving-America.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Privileged to have with us for just a few more minutes Dr. Robert Marks, and again, he is a distinguished professor of electrical and computer engineering at Baylor University. By the way, if you have a copy of my book, A Biblical Point of View on Intelligent Design, I have a section in there in which I told the story about Dr. Marks, in which he actually put together an evolutionary informatics lab to examine whether or not Darwinian processes like, say, mutation and natural selection could generate new information. Of course, then there was all sorts of controversy surrounding that. But the good news is it's resulted in a book called Introduction to Evolutionary Informatics. And it is co-authored not only by you, but Bill Dembski and Winston Ewart and others. And this is really, without getting into all the technical detail, a way to determine whether or not this idea of intelligent design makes sense. In other words, can mutation, natural selection, can randomness give us order? I think intuitively, Dr. Marks, we know that that can't happen, and you have a lot more mathematical and engineering specificity to give us the same kind of conclusion, don't you?
Well, I think so. I think that Bill Dembski and Winston and I worked together for about 10 years. We published a lot of our stuff in peer-reviewed archival journals and conference papers, but that was kind of written towards the nerd. It had a lot of mathematics and very deep sort of technical stuff in it. So what we decided to do is to take that list of papers and write it in a way that's more accessible to the public. And that was the genesis of the idea for Introduction to Evolutionary Informatics. So we explain it. There's a little bit of mathematics. It's not an easy read. If you want an easy read, go buy a John Grisham novel or something like that. But if you really want to learn something, get a hold of Introduction to Evolutionary Informatics. The beginning of the book actually analyzes the evolutionary programs put forth by the neo-Darwinists purporting to illustrate neo-Darwinian evolution. In fact, one of the programs called Avida was co-authored by Robert Pennock, who was one of the people that testified in the Dover-Titzemer trial. He came up and said, yeah, not only do we have a computer program that can do evolution is actually happening. And what we've done is shown that in all cases that we have looked at, that the programmer has snuck information through the back door, design information, if you will, to guide the evolutionary process to the desired result. And we made, I think, some very interesting contributions. We can actually measure the degree to which a program is assisted in something called active information. So we can measure how much outside information has been smuggled in, and we can do so in bits. And part of the book deals with looking at these programs, showing that indeed external information is being smuggled in, and showing not only the location of that extra information, but actually measuring the information in bits. We've done so for Avida, for EV, and a number of other programs put forward by the neo-Darwinists. And our conclusion is very simple. There exists no model for successfully describing undirected Darwinian evolution. So Darwinian evolution is currently not a hard science. It's still a soft science. Hard sciences like physics and such have mathematics support it.
That's right. And again, I think the point for our listeners, without getting into the mathematics, but again, I will certainly recommend the book because you can skip across some of those areas in your book and at least see the conclusions. But the bigger issue is that when people hear, well, now we have computer simulations that prove evolution is true, it's amazing because if a computer generates this conclusion, then people tend to accept it. These are sometimes the same people that say, yeah, but you have computer simulations right now that say that the Earth should be a lot warmer than it is right now. And you have computer simulations that predicted that the stock market would go up and it crashed and a variety of other issues. So, but nevertheless, I think it's just, again, a wise evaluation of this. And when you look at these simulations or these attempts to try to explain how very random processes could give you anything that would look like an actual intelligent system, self-replicating system, you begin to see that most of the evidence still is in the hands of those people that believe in intelligent design, not random chance evolution.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, I don't know if you've seen the movie Dumb and Dumber, where they have the Lloyd Christmas telling Mary Swanson that what are his chances with her, and she says 1 in a million, and everybody laughs because it's stupid, because Lloyd Christmas's response is, so you're telling me there's a chance.
It's a chance.
And this is kind of, yeah, so you're telling me there's a chance. And this is the sort of response that we get from the Darwinists, that, yeah, so you're telling me a chance. One of the things we do in the book, by the way, just a side note, we have marked off the book, motivated by Michael Behe's Darwin's Black Box, we have marked off the technical sections.
Right.
So people can read through it without, so you can skip over them. But we have actually looked at the probabilistic resources of our universe and even the hypothetical multiverse. And we have looked at probabilities, and we have shown that the probabilistic resources of the universe or the multiverse are not enough to show the specified complexity we observe every day.
Amazing.
And there are things which are possible. When I'm typing, there's something in quantum mechanics called quantum tunneling. If I hit my space bar with my thumb, there's a finite chance that my thumb is going to quantum tunnel through the space bar and get stuck there. But that ain't going to happen. The probabilities are so small. It's called Borel's law. Borel's law says that there is a point when things become so improbable, you have to say they're impossible.
That's right. Well, again, you got to love Dr. Marks, because not only do we quote from The Terminator and The Matrix and I, Robot, but Dumb and Dumber, so nothing else. I know the students probably love you. And again, I wanted to encourage people to find out a little bit more. We have a link to your website, so people can, if they want to go to Robert Marks, find out a little bit more about this, because it is, again, available. Just click on his button there, and it takes you to robertmarks.org. There's a virtual office there, so you can find out about some of these books. If you have somebody that is in your community that would like to read about this, I think it is readable. If you have high school math, I think you can follow it. But if, again, this is something you'd like to know more about, or you know a young person that's really interested in computers or artificial intelligence, again, we wanted to give you that opportunity to be exposed to Dr. Robert Marks. So I've mentioned you in one of my books. I am just thrilled that you are on the program with us today, and I look forward to the next opportunity.
Well, thanks, Kirby. I would also mention we do have a website devoted directly to our intelligent design work, and there's a link to it on my webpage, but that's evoinfo.org, evoinfo.org. My wife says it sounds like evil info, but it isn't. It's evoinfo, evoinfo.org. And there you can download all of our papers if you want to get down and dirty with the mathematics and the modeling and such.
Yeah, evoinfo.org. It's the third one on the left-hand side of the robertmarks.org.
Yes.
So, Robert, thank you for joining us today. Look forward to the next opportunity.
Thank you, Kirby. It was fun.
Let's take a break. I thought for those of you that have been hearing all the fear about supercomputers and artificial intelligence and robots taking over our lives, or maybe the argument that computer simulations have proved in evolution, well, you heard right here a point of view. Just might want to take that with a grain of salt. How about a huge bag of salt? Because some of this is just bizarre in terms of some of the kinds of claims being made. Second hour, I want to have an open line for a while, and then we'll get into a couple of issues in the news. But just before we do so, let me again encourage you to consider what you might do to support this ministry. We cover so many different topics here, and we really are equipping you to take a stand in the culture, to understand these ideas from a biblical point of view, to really cut through some of the clutter of information and misinformation. So if you value what we do here on Point of View, let me encourage you to visit the website pointofview.net. Click on that button that says Give Now and make a generous gift before the end of our fiscal year, which is on Friday, June 30th. Or as we go to a break, you might want to call someone on our pledge line. That number is 800-347-5151. We'd love to hear from you. Of course, you can write to us as well. Post Office Box 30, Dallas, Texas, 75221. Any way you do so, we would greatly appreciate it. We'll be back with more right after this.
When you invest in Point of View Radio in July, that's a good thing. The reality is, like you, our bills keep coming every week, every month. But as we close in on the end of June this week, I encourage you to step up now. Number one, because our fiscal year ends Friday, and next year's agenda, the plans we've already developed and hope to accomplish, depend on what happens now. Number two, I encourage you to give now because another listener, one who might have greater means than you or I do, will match what you give, doubling the impact up to $10,000. If you can also give $10,000, we'll put it to very fruitful and good use, and the matching gift will multiply the impact. But whether you give in 5 figures with or without a decimal point, please give this week. Visit pointofview.net and click on Bridge the Great Divide, or call 1-800-347-5151. We are down to the final days. We need you to step up now. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.